JT Show.
What's going on, Smashers, and welcome to another episode of the Smash JT Show, my weekly episodic adventure discussing divisive issues in the video game industry and beyond sometimes. It airs every Friday, and before I forget, hit that like button, smash that subscribe if you're new here. For those of you who are interested in the sweatshirt, I had a lot of people asking about it last time. I actually record in my garage. This time of year, even in Southern California, it is freaking cold, so I'm wearing my sweatshirt. If you're interested in getting this, I'll put a link in the description below. As far as today's topic, we gotta talk about Fortnite and if it single-handedly is devouring the entire video game industry. The reason why I bring this up is because Fortnite is in the news once again. GameIndustry.biz had an excellent article detailing why the whole stock market, as far as the game industry is concerned, is up in arms, concerned, worried, and all these stocks seem to be tanking together. Well, except for EA. Yeah, they dropped a lot, but then all of a sudden, because Apex Legends had a huge increase in players, 10 million in the first 3 days, they've actually gained back everything they've lost since their conference call. So, the stock market can be a finicky place. With that being said though, it still doesn't explain why Nintendo, Sony, Take-Two, Activision, Blizzard, among a slew of other AAA publishers are tanking over the past couple of weeks. In fact, going back to September of last year, looking at the stocks for all of these companies, it's been pretty much a downhill slide. Many industry analysts are blaming Fortnite for this, saying that everybody is going to play Fortnite and all the money is going to that, which is why these other game companies aren't getting the money that they should be getting, aren't growing like they expected, and everything is put on hold. However, if you look at Tencent, the company who owns Epic, the company who makes Fortnite, their stock is doing the same slide. So that in itself explains that Fortnite is not the reason why the stock market in the game industry is completely tanking right now. In fact, it looks like Fortnite is being used as an excuse by a lot of investors as the reason why their companies aren't holding their own weight when it comes to making money. Now, as far as EA is concerned, in particular with their recent upswing thanks to Apex Legends, a lot of analysts are starting to think that that game could be the game that ultimately takes Fortnite down, and because of that, there's a lot of hype around EA in the past 3 days, which is completely shifting the entire industry's dynamic on if Fortnite is even untouchable in the first place. Now, over the years, you look at the history of mega popular, successful games, starting with WoW, League of Legends, and a slew of other really big-time games. They all had their time in the sun, and all eventually fell to someone else. Now, looking at Fortnite on its own, it's not the most exciting game or adventurous game or even a game that takes a lot of chances. It's just one of those games that melds together a bunch of different game types and makes it fun for the casuals and the advanced players to play together. People might look at this and say that Fortnite is boring, it's stupid, it's ruining the game industry, and I've been one of those people that have concerns of it in the past. But when you take a step back from this situation and look at Fortnite for what it is, it's just another game that just happens to be extremely popular. In fact, making almost $4 billion annually right now, as compared to the height of what Blizzard's World of Warcraft made back in the day, which was around $2 billion. You're looking at a game that's bringing in almost double that. But people would argue that that doesn't mean it's destroying the rest of the game industry. It's actually raising the tide for all ships, meaning it's bringing new gamers into the realm of video games, and after they're done playing Fortnite, they're going to move on to another game, and because of that, it's actually increasing the overall player base, meaning it's increasing the revenue for the entire video game industry at large. So ultimately, I'm personally looking at this entire situation as a complete overreaction by a lot of investors out there, whereas this is actually a buying opportunity, except you don't know when it's going to stop falling. So it's very dangerous to jump into the stock market right now with it, because it could continue to fall overall for the next few months before it starts to pick up. But one thing's for sure, these game companies, as far as the stock price is concerned, is at a discount. But if you compare it to 5 years ago, they're all still trading at 3 to 5 times higher than what their max price was back then. So overall, the game industry is extremely healthy. This is just a minor hiccup overall, but when you take a step back from the entire situation and see how much money the game industry is bringing in overall, no, Fortnite is not destroying it. It's not doing anything destructive to it. It's actually bringing more players to game, which is the best thing for everybody involved. Without major leaps in the video game industry and pushing for better technology and more advanced storylines, we'd still be stuck at Atari with Pac-Man looking and sounding like this. So yeah, I look at Fortnite as almost a competition in the game industry that's forcing these other publishers to create more dynamic experiences that work harder to get the attention away from Fortnite and try to pull people to their platform for their games. By doing so, it increases the competition, increases the quality of games, and ultimately makes a better gaming environment for everybody. At least that's how I feel about it. A lot of detractors might look at Fortnite as it's ruining the game industry because it's bringing a bunch of people in to play a game that doesn't necessarily represent what gaming culture is, what good video games are. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have its place. I mean, look at how successful it's been. And seeing how Epic's Tencent is still falling in stock, it means that the overall market may have been overvaluing these stocks to begin with. Yes, there's a ton of money in them, but looking at a point that I made talking about EA stock the other day is maybe these investors are looking at the game industry like it's gone up exponentially for a very long time, and it's not realistic to expect that to continue to grow at the rate that it has been growing. And because of that, that's why they're getting scared and skittish and removing their money from a lot of these companies. Ultimately, Fortnite is not a bad thing for the game industry, but I would say it's a bad thing for the gamer because they're so hooked on playing one singular title that they're missing out on some seriously great games that have been coming out over the past few years, but they're pouring all their time into one singular game instead of experiencing all these various platforms that are amazing right now. At least that's how I feel about it, but I'd be very interested to hear where you stand on where Fortnite falls as far as ruining the game industry, or maybe it's actually helping the game industry because it's bringing more people here. Love to hear perspectives of this. Let's have a conversation continued down in the discussion below, and that's where I'm going to leave that topic. As far as the smashing video of the week this week, I gotta talk about Super Nicktendo and his $20,000 Turbografx 16 collection. Well, not his collection, but talking about how it costs $20,000 to have an entire Turbografx 16 collection. What's wrong with the system, how it falters, how these games got so expensive, why some of them are so rare. It's a fascinating look at a system that really doesn't get very much attention these days, and I learned a ton from it. Strongly encourage you guys checking that out. I'll put a link in the description below for that.
The controller is pretty unique as well. It supports turbo right out of the box. Each button has 3 different intensities for turbo, which is great for shoot 'em ups. While other companies offered first-party turbo controllers, Turbografx 16 made it standard.
And that's where I'm going to leave this week's episode. Again, I want to say a special thank you to all of these Patreons listed next to me here. If you're interested in joining them for as little as $1 per month, hit that link that just showed up there. And again, if you're still not subscribed to the channel and you enjoy what I'm doing here, hit that subscribe button there. And if you missed last week's episode, I'll put it right around my face right here. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and you stay smashing.